This is the Turf Zone Podcast, your central information and news hub, bringing together professionals from turf associations across multiple states to share things to help you and your business. Brought to you in partnership with our friends at the Arkansas Turfgrass Association. Now, let's get in the zone.
Welcome to the Turf Zone. In this episode of Arkansas Turfgrass, we're talking to Mark Brown, ATA board member. Mark, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for joining us, and thanks for agreeing to talk to us a little bit about your work in the turf industry.
Sure. Glad to do it.
So let's start with your position on the board. How long have you served?
I am going into, I think, my third year now. Just started my third year.
Excellent. So in thinking about the association and what you guys do, what has been a big priority in your time on the board? I know there's been a lot of education and event focus. What have you been most involved in and most proud of in that role?
Yeah, well, one of the big things that we've tried to do over the last few years, or even maybe before I got on the board, but just trying to carry that on, is we're trying to grow the association here in the state. We're not a huge state here in Arkansas. We have quite a few turfgrass professionals, golf course guys, and lawn care guys and sports fields. We're just trying to get more, to come to our shows, to get actively involved. So we're really trying to, increase our numbers, so to speak, and just get more people active in the association so we can grow the association. And, we got to let everybody know that the Turfgrass Association is a benefit to them. There's a lot of things they can get out of it. So that's kind of what we're trying to do, is just trying to grow awareness that we're here and get more people active in the association.
That involvement and that support seems important now more than ever. And we have to talk about the elephant in the room, where a lot of our turf professionals are not working or working in different capacities. What do you think is the general attitude among ATA members and professionals in general, even who are not members in the state right now, while we're having to work so differently than we're used to, especially in the spring?
Yeah, it's definitely a change for them for what they're accustomed to. I've talked to some of them, and they're really itching to get back out there and get everything back to somewhat normal, but they understand some things are going to change. The turf industry is, not to say that it hasn't really been affected, but it's probably taken maybe a little bit less of a hit than the other things. Still, it has its challenges of finding enough work, getting enough work for everyone. I do know that a lot of the golf courses are busy, which is good. So that, they have that going for them. But the lawn care guys, it's, this thing kind of hit at a time of the year where they're really starting to get rolling, especially now. So, hopefully we're past the biggest hurdle of this right now. But I know that a lot of them are itching to get back to work. So
I have seen on social media some really good looking sports fields out there, and it's awful sad to see them empty.
That is, yeah. You look at all the baseball fields and the complexes at the city and state level and things like that, and the guys it's tough on them right now because they've worked so hard on them, all through the fall last year, and keeping them going during this winter, and then with any overseeding that they may have done to get ready for spring sports, and now you don't have those spring sports. So, but you still got to maintain them. So they're trying their best to maintain them, but they're just not having people out there to enjoy them right now.
Absolutely. Well, here's hoping that we can get the kids back out on the field sometime soon. So let's shift gears and talk about your career in turfgrass. How did you become interested or get started in the industry?
Well, I originally I lived in Austin, Texas, and was working down there. I wasn't in the sports or in the turf industry then, but I started playing golf. That was kind of the first time that I had started playing golf. And I really liked it. So I said, well, this could be a good career for me. I was a little bit older then. I was already in my mid to late 20s at that point. So, I was really kind of looking for something that I would enjoy. So I found that. My original plan was to go into golf course design and, or golf course architecture. That was really what I wanted to do. Well, as I kind of got into that and looked at that, and then I found the maintenance side of it, and just being out there every day on a completed golf course a lot of times. So that kind of turned my shift to doing that. So from there, I enrolled back in school at the University of Arkansas, got my turf degree in turfgrass science, and went to work while I was in school, I worked on sports fields for the university at Baum Stadium and at Razorback Stadium. When I got out of school, that's when I entered the golf course industry is kind of what I was shooting for to begin with. Got into the golf course, was an assistant golf course superintendent, a couple places at the Alotian Club here in Little Rock. From there, I got kind of transitioned back into sports fields where I was a sports turf manager at Nicky Stevens, which is the minor league baseball stadium here in Little Rock. Did that for a few years and then kind of went a little bit different direction there and got into a little bit of the academic side of it, where I worked for the University of Arkansas Research and Extension, where I worked as an agent here in the central Arkansas area, helping out the lawn care guys, golf course guys with any problems, plant diseases, weed control, things like that. But then an opportunity came back and I got back into golf course as a golf course superintendent. So I've done a little bit of everything after golf course superintendent. Then I was a director of campus grounds for the University of Arkansas Little Rock. So I was over all the sports fields, intramural fields, campus wide. So I've been from one end to the other. I've seen, a little bit of everything that the turf industry has to offer.
Okay, now you just led me right to this because I'm not trying to pick a fight, but if you had to pick a favorite sector that you were in, golf, sports, turf, education, a more admin role with the university. Yeah. What was your favorite?
Well, each one of them has a few great things about it. But if I had to pick, I've always been a golf course guy. I enjoy being out on a golf course. Now, there are some working in the academic field for the extension research had great benefits, which you may not have in the golf course business. The sports fields was great, but it is very, very long hours. I thought golf course had long hours, but minor league baseball and those types of arenas have even longer hours. So, but it always goes back to golf course. That was my first real job out of college, and is something that I'm really like to do, is being out on a golf course.
How's your game looking these days?
It's kind of funny. I play a lot more golf now that I'm not in the business or in the golf course business. I play a lot more now than I did when I was actually in it. So I can hold my own. I always got room to improve for sure. So it's I'm like everybody else. I have good days and bad days, but I break a whole lot less clubs these days as I'm getting older. So I'm getting better. So.
Well, that is one measure of success.
That's right. That's right.
That's a good way to say it.
Yeah.
So let's come back to our ATA members and what they're doing out in the fields right now. What would you say has been the biggest challenge and just collectively in your career in Turfgrass, in all the different sectors? What has really thrown you the most curveballs?
Right. Well, there's really two things that I've experienced, and probably everybody else has experienced, is finding good help, finding good labor, finding good people you can count on, depend on, that are willing to work these days. And if you can't find those folks, what happens is, obviously everybody knows that you get to where you're working too many hours. And home life suffers and your free time suffers, things like that. But it's got to be, getting those laborers, handling with the labor, the lack of budgets that most everybody has these days, which is a big thing, obviously. So you've got to somehow manage to find good people, keep good people, and it just lightens the load on yourself, the whole staff, everything like that, if you can get things done and still find time for free time. So
I hear that a lot, that the long hours are not always the most conducive to a lot of family time. So,
That's correct. Yeah.
have you learned anything in your years that helped you maybe have a little more work-life balance that you can pass along to the younger guys?
You can't do everything in one day, and I've told people that. You've got to manage your expectations of what we all want our golf course, our sports fields. We want every one of our lawns to look the absolute best. So you've got to manage your expectations. And along that, you have to manage the expectations of your customers, whether it's your members at the club or your city council or your customers that you're, maintaining their lawn. So you can't do it all. So you really got to kind of draw a hard line and say, I'm really going to focus on this today and getting this done. And then once it comes time, then you got to kind of leave it there, go home, kind of get away from it, escape it a little bit, and try to come back the next day fresh. And you do that day after day, and it'll help you stay a little bit fresh. But, it's a whole lot easier said than done to just leave stuff there. And then, it's going to be there tomorrow, have that kind of mentality. It's a little bit, harder to do that, than it is to say it. So, but you got to find a way to do, to incorporate that into your lifestyle.
Absolutely. So you have a family?
I do. I have been married for 14 years. I have a 12-year-old daughter, and I have a 9-year-old daughter. So they keep me very, very busy. I still try to sneak in a round of golf a couple times, 2, 3, 4 times a month if I can. We're a sports family, so both of my daughters play sports, so we're constantly going. So, but I do. I try to balance everything and give everybody the equal time as well. So.
Well, have you tried to indoctrinate either of your girls into the golf game, or is it too soon?
I have, and I've even tried to get my wife out there. Bought her a set of clubs, a couple of years ago. We go to the driving range. We're a member of a local club down here in Central Arkansas, so we go to the driving range. I try to get them out there, and they'll hit balls for about 5 minutes, and then it's boring to them. They're tired. So I've said I've tried, and all they want to do, it seems like all they want to do now is drive the cart. So that's the funnest thing to them is driving the cart. So I'll let them drive the cart around every now and then, and but at this age, it's a little bit boring to them. And my wife, she could really take it or leave it as well. So I'm going solo on this, it looks like. So
I have to say, I understand that as a mother with kids about the same age. I totally get it. They're used to more fast-paced sports and activities.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Like I said I asked earlier your advice for younger people in the turfgrass industry.
Sure.
And having a mentor and folks to help support them. So I might go that direction.
Yeah, sure.
Anything else you recommend or want to address that I haven't steered us in the direction of?
No, I don't think so. It's a challenging profession. I do know that. So it is, I don't know how numbers are of people getting into it, but, I used to tell everybody when I was working with the extension service, when I'd come into contact with these guys, we would always try to get guys to get more education, to get more training, not only for the business owners, on the business aspect of it, but I'd tell the guys, say, get your guys, enroll them in a class, get them in something, give them something to shoot for, give them something to look forward to, give them some training, give them a little bit more. Maybe you can get a little bit better guys. You can keep guys longer if you give them a little bit of, self-worth or something like that in the industry. So that helps them, for sure, to keep guys, retain guys, and get new ones. So I would always tell guys like, hey, we got a training class, or I'm giving a talk here, we're giving a talk here on this, we're having a roundtable discussion. Bring your guys and, what's going on out there in the industry. So, I really just tried to do that to the people that I came in contact with, as well as, I had when I was a golf course an assistant, I had my first superintendent I worked for. He was pretty tough, but I learned a ton of stuff from him. So it was one of the ways that I, kind of got on that path. So, find someone that can teach you if you're a young person coming into it. Try to stay in places. I have moved around a few times. Longevity is key there to everybody. The younger guys may not be looking towards retirement, obviously, but it is something you got to look for. And the longer you stay at places, the better, you sock away money and build your retirement, things like that, get some guys some financial training and things like that. Make sure you got all that in line, as well as the turf knowledge as well. So it all helps.
It's a multifaceted business, and
that's right.
Those members who are operating companies and employing a lot of people, there's a lot more to think of than
absolutely
than basic managing Turfgrass. It's a lot of, I think, like you said earlier, managing people, managing expectations for your customers.
Right.
Yeah, that is true.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Mark, that was great advice for professionals who are just entering the industry or those who have been around the block a few times. Thank you so much again for joining us.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
Don't miss an episode of The Turf Zone. Subscribe at Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
You've been listening to The Turf Zone. For more episodes of The Turf Zone, visit theturfzone.com and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or your favorite podcast app.